Hi, welcome to our Homestead series. We hope this will be of enjoyment and informative. We don't know everything, we don't do everything perfect, but what we do know works for us. In these economic times, people have been talking about a back to the land movement or getting back to a more simple way of life. The transformation from the comforts of city dwelling and our modern way can be a little different going back to the homestead. I won't say complicated, but there are some things some people should know. So I hope you enjoy this series. Thank you for watching. Okay, welcome to our Homestead series. This one's going to be a little bit different. My wife has been getting a few requests, and I've received a few comments on how we do our shopping. With this recent swine flu activity, we made a video on preparation, and I mentioned that we shop monthly, and we might do a 3-month trip and what have you. And we actually were getting quite a few, well, I think a few anyways, comments on some people not knowing how we could possibly do that or whatever. So I guess the thing is, we'll just tell you a bit about what we do and then how we got there. Sometimes these things should be as easy as 1, 2, 3, but they don't seem to be that way. I don't know whether it's when you have a family or kids, how things, maybe it's a little more complicated. Now, give you a bit of background. I was in the restaurant business for anywhere from between 6 to 8 years throughout high school and afterwards. And in our particular household, my wife is pretty well, she runs the kitchen type of thing. But I said to her, I think what we got to do is we got to organize and we got to run it as if it's a business. We got to run our household like it's a kitchen or a restaurant. The problem was it all come down to trying to set a budget for groceries, so you'd have a standard budget every month. And quite often, we wouldn't have any food in the house. It would be strange. Well, what are we having for supper tonight? I don't know, And so you'd all hop in the van and out for hot dogs. And next thing you know, at the end of the month, you've spent, how much money. I really have always believed there's no need for that, but I felt a lot of it was just organization. So what we started with, we started this maybe about 8 months ago. When I was helping, we had a baby, and my wife, of course, wasn't really up to doing much, so I was kind of helping around the house and taking over for a bit. And I basically, the first thing I had to start with was a menu plan. A monthly grocery can only be done if you have a standardized menu. Now, in the restaurant business, basically, regardless, the exception, I should say, of some specials that a restaurant might have, generally your menu is pretty well standard. And over a course of time, anybody who owns a restaurant will know that you get an expectation of how much business you're going to do, how much meals you're going to sell, and there's always a little bit of fluctuation in there. And that allows you to have a certain amount of stock that you want to keep, and then how much you have to order every month. So it's pretty, basic. So what we did was, the first thing I did was made up a menu plan for us that was very standard and basic, right across the board. I said to my wife, what we have to do is simplify it. And we started by doing our usual weekly shopping based on this menu. And once we got our menu plan organized, then I said, okay, I think we can start shopping, bi-weekly. And we started to shop our bi-weekly. And then eventually we got to the point where we got our act together and our menu had sorted out. And it actually took a load off my wife tremendously, because there was never any question about what we were having for supper that night, or looking around or not having something, Actually, the last 3 weeks I'll get to it in a minute. This part of this video too is the last 3 weeks have been kind of a disaster, but I'll show you and I can explain why this happened. What we did was we made up our menu plan, then we made up our grocery list. Actually, this we had done about a year ago. Maybe my wife can just get a little bit of a clip on that. It's pretty simple stuff really. I've got our what goes in our freezer, what's generally in our fridge and our pantry, and this is some miscellaneous and cleaning supplies, and I've also got written down any extras that we may need from time to time. And I put a little checkbox, and what I had to do is I had to say, okay, what are we going to keep as stock? And in any restaurant, what you basically do, if you have 10 bottles of ketchup, and you want that all there at all times, and the purpose for a certain amount is to absorb that fluctuation that you don't always have control over. If you take one off that shelf, then that basically means you have to replace it. So you mark it off the second you take it off. So that's what we do. If we open something, in this case, if it's a dish soap or ketchup or a mustard or a mayonnaise, whatever it is, we check it on the list and we know, I guess, boy, you know, I'm getting ahead here, apologize for this, but I should tell you one thing though, we still do weekly for some of the smaller things, okay, like milk and eggs and stuff like that we don't want to store very long, but I'll get to that in a minute. But we check it off, and we do go on our weekly. If anything is on that list that we've checked off, we replace. Even though we may still have a full bottle of ketchup in the fridge, the concept is to always never run out. So that way you're never having to go out to the store if you're short one item, because most of us find this. If you're short one item, you go out to the store, you spent the money on the gas, you're probably hungry, so you might have bought something while you were out, and you probably got 2 or 3 more things, and it defeats the purpose. So with that, we made a big inventory list of all the stuff that we use, and not everything is done that way. Like some stuff is a little different, it's a little more visual. Like some of our produce, for example, I don't like obviously storing produce for an entire month. A head of lettuce or whatever won't last a month, so there's some things we just go by visually. And when we go out on our Friday short grocery trip to town, we'll check our visual items. I've got a few marked down here, and some stuff too that we buy in large quantity, bulk, like sugar, for example. We buy what was that, like a 25k bag, kilograms, so like a 50-pound bag of sugar. I mean, obviously we've opened one 50-pound bag of sugar that lasts 6 months. We're not going to go out and buy another one to sit for 6 months. So that's a visual thing. We just go and look at that, and as we see that we get down to that point where, okay, you know, we know we're going to need some in the next week type of thing, that's when we'll go and buy it.